So what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about twin souls, but I'm that's not all I'm going to talk about. What I'm actually going to talk about is I'm going to talk about soul love, settling love, true love, twin soul versus soulmate. I'm going to sort of do a rundown on all of that, and then I'm going to continue that or complete that with why, if you feel like you've met your twin soul and the relationship hasn't worked, why that's happening, why the universe isn't getting it to line up, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So first of all, the first thing to understand is that a twin soul, which is different than a soulmate, and I've talked about this before, and I'm going to take a different turn in just a second. A twin soul is a soul that you have aligned, your souls have aligned sort of from the beginning to the end of existence. So this is your ultimate partner. Okay. So this is your sort of perfect partner, if you will. This is the one that goes through every life with you. The goal or the hope in every life is that the two of you connect and you learn your lessons and you do your individual contracts together. And before I continue with that, I also need to share that nobody outside of you actually knows what your curriculum or your contract is in each individual life. So, spirit guides, universe, everybody above know what your total curriculum is, because your total curriculum, your grade 0 to university is the same for everybody. We have to reach certain things, just like, the Airdrie education system and the Calgary education system, they teach it differently, but they still have to hit the same curriculum, or the private school curriculum versus the homeschooling curriculum versus the public schools curriculum. Like, you still have to meet all the marks. Okay. And so we're very much like that as far as the universe is concerned. They understand your whole curriculum, but before you come here, before you are born, before you start this life, you actually, almost like I guess the easy way, if you want to learn how to visualize things, is it's like you're going into a confessional. So, the image in my head is a Catholic confessional. Not that I'm saying that it actually looks like a Catholic confessional, but like you're going into this state right before you're ready to be born. You sort of go into this little private cove where it's got all of the information, everything that you've learned, everything that's still in your curriculum to learn. And you sort of pull things from the curriculum that you're going to choose to experience in this lifetime. But this is a private session between you and your curriculum. So the universe does not actually know what your curriculum is. The universe doesn't know where your twin soul is going to be. The universe doesn't have any of that information. It guides you based on the actions you're taking. Okay. So it understands what could possibly be your curriculum based on the decisions and choices that you're taking. And we're all born with free will, which can cause some conflict when it comes into twin soul relationships, right? So, but just to basically understand, a twin soul is a soul that you have been with. This is your ultimate partner that you have, or the goal is to connect with in every life. Now, we're not going to connect with our twin soul in every life, but that's sort of the ultimate goal. Okay. So your twin soul is like your ultimate guru partner, the best thing. A soulmate, and this is the part that I've shared in many classes before between a twin soul and a soulmate. A soulmate is someone that you have experienced more than one life with, and there's a remnant, there's a familiarity between the two of you. And a soulmate can also be friends, family members. A soulmate is someone that you feel like you really know each other. But the other thing to understand about a soulmate, so like a twin soul is like the ultimate partner, but a soulmate is more like a sibling rivalry. So as much as you guys get along really good, and as friends and as family members, you could be best friends. You could be absolutely amazing. But in a relationship, you drive each other kind of mad. And that's because, think about that. Think about best friends that you've had in your life, or family members that you've had in your life. Could you ever picture having sex with them, sleeping beside them every day, building a life together, sharing bank accounts, building a house together? Like, there's just they would drive you absolutely batty, right? And that's a soulmate. So a soulmate is a really great connection, and a connection you've done many times. And it can be friends, it can be coworkers, it can be family members, it can be, and you have more than one soulmate. You have many soulmates because we all sort of align ourselves together. There's a reason for familiarity. Even when even when you find a teacher that you connect to, like those of you that have taken more courses from me than just sort of one or two, there's a familiarity. We've connected in other lives before, so we have a soul connection. So that makes me, a soul teacher or a soulmate or whatever you want to call it, right? So that's sort of the difference between the two. Now, when it comes to relationships, there is different types of relationships. And you need to understand, or I hope that you understand, that when you think of love, when you think of your love life, there is dual communication. Okay, so there's two types of communication that are going on inside of you. The first type, and sort of the most prevalent type of communication, is your soul's communication, because your soul knows what your perfect partner, that person that you've experienced so many lives with, your lover, your best friend from so many lives. Your soul knows on a soul level who that is and what they'll bring to the table. So you have that desire. So you have sort of two forms of communication in what you're looking for in relationships. And one of those forms is your soul, and it's the things that you just know. It's the things that you know you need, it's the things you know that can be provided for you because your soul has experienced it with this person before. And then there's a belief pattern or belief system list of requirements of what you're looking for in a partner. And those are actually stemming from everything that you've seen, experienced, witnessed, and heard in this lifetime, and a lot of our belief system, especially when it comes to relationships, is more based on what I don't want versus what I do want, or I want this because, I want, I'm a woman, so let's say I want a man who's got a steady job and has for the last 15 years and is financially independent because I grew up in a family where my dad wasn't financially independent. That's not my situation. I'm just using it as an example, right? So it's half of your sort of qualifications that you're looking for in a relationship are coming from your soul, and the other half of your qualifications are coming from your belief system. And over the process of time, whether you're on YouTube or you're in my courses or you're in anything, I really hope everybody actually gets to the point that they learn that your belief system is screwed. Okay, that's the part we don't want to listen to. And we'll get into so many different reasons for that over this process. But that's where your wish list, if you will, desire, what you think you're looking for and why you're looking for it, that's where those stem from. So then there's different types of loves. Okay. And there is just different types of loves, just like, and I'm going to let you in on a secret as a mom, and most moms are never going to say this, and it's going to sound horrible that I'm actually saying it, but just like there's different types of loves with your children. Okay, there is, without a doubt, different types of love with your children. My love for Lee is completely different than my love for Dylan, which is completely different than my love for Kaylin, which is completely different than my love for Jennifer, which is completely, I have a lot of kids, which is completely different than my love for Ashley, which is completely different than my love for Eddie. And our relationships are completely different too. So, just like you have different, different friends that have different love levels and different things that you guys do together, different love relationships when it comes to your children, different love relationships when it comes to your family. You might get along with one sibling exceptionally well, but you don't get along with the other siblings. We have different types of loves in sort of every scenario. So it would only make sense, including work colleagues. We got the work husbands and the work wives, and we got the work bitch and we got the work jerk, and we've got different relationships with everybody. And so it would only make sense that in your personal one-on-one relationships, there are different types of relationships. Okay. Now, as much as we're always searching for twin souls, for our twin soul, we're searching for that ultimate relationship. There's, first of all, a lot of things we don't understand in order to have that ultimate relationship. One of the things that we don't understand is what it actually takes and the kind of vulnerability and self-exposure and acceptance that you actually have to learn how to do in order to be able to have that relationship, regardless of how connected you feel to that person. So that's sort of misunderstood. We just automatically think that that's going to happen when you meet your twin soul, and it's not. Okay. So there's that, but there's also life choices that will change and alter what kinds of relationships you're going to have and what kind of love you're going to have. And I can give examples to that as You're certainly going to put more energy and effort in the first relationship you ever have than you're going to put in the 20th relationship you've ever had, right? You're certainly going to put more energy and effort in the first person you've ever dated that you didn't know was going to cheat on you, so than you would the 20th person that after all 19 have cheated on you. I mean, you're just automatically going to walk into the 20th relationship making them sort of the scapegoat that everything that's happened with the other 19, because you've been cheated on every one, so you're just going to treat them like you're already getting cheated on, right? So there's a sort of different levels of energy of what you'll put into relationships, and there's different reasons why we want relationships. And this is something that will create a lot of frustration for a lot of people, because there is without a doubt different reasons why you want a relationship. And so because of that, the different reasons of why you want a relationship are going to be the different types of love relationships that you can have. So there is the ultimate relationship, which is you are ultimately vulnerable and you have a soul connected relationships, which means it's a soul love. And a soul love can absolutely be an unconditionally loving relationship. As a matter of fact, a soul love is an unconditionally loving relationship. And when you get to the point that your souls are aligned and in love with each other, not just your being, like your brains and your hearts and your personalities, but your souls are connected. When you have that kind of relationship, that is a bond that can be very, 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 very difficult, if not almost impossible to break, because there is a lot of things that you will put up with, that you will deal with, that you will accept, that you will acknowledge, that you won't get upset about, that you won't be affected with in a soul love, that you would absolutely be affected in every other kind of love, and I'm throughout this entire program, I'm going to use examples of Brian, because I have a soul love. So I'm going to use some examples. First of all, I have a soul love and am married to my twin soul, but I have also had other loves, other types of love. So I'm not even just talking on my ass. Like, it's, even if I wasn't, Canada's top clairvoyant, someone that teaches this, I'd be able to tell you that there's different kind of loves, because I've experienced it. And if you're being honest with yourself, you'd be able to tell yourself too. But because I am in a soul relationship, and I'm actually gonna back up, and I go on little tangents, but I'm gonna back up a little bit. Because of history, because of the other types of relationships that I've had, and because of the other types of relationships that my partner had, my husband has had, when we first got together, we actually made a legal binding contract and got it signed by lawyers and the whole bit, because he'd been cheated on and I'd been cheated on. And so when we decided we were going to build our lives together, at first, because you've got a lot of baggage, we made this contract and commitment that if either one of us cheated, then, and the other one found out, you simply drop your keys off, your credit cards and your bank card on the table, and you walk out with the clothes on your back. So let's hope you're wearing shoes, because you don't even get time to put any on. You don't get your vehicles, you don't get anything. You lose everything. You are choosing to sacrifice everything that you've earned and everything that you've worked for your family, because we were a blended family and we wanted to make sure that both of our sets of families were actually being taken care of, right? Of course, once you allow the vulnerability that it takes to have a soul love, even though we still have that contract, it's really not valid, because based on any other love, I would never forgive another person, another kind of love that I've ever had. I would never forgive them for cheating. But I can't tell you, and maybe it's because I have a soul love, and so I just know in my soul that he would never do that to me. But I can't tell you that if my husband came home tomorrow and told me that he cheated, that I would actually walk away. I can tell you I'd want to. I can tell you I'd be devastated. I can tell you that I'd be hurt. But a soul love creates a connection that there are a lot more things that you would forgive, surpass, get over, that you wouldn't in other loves. And that's because what you get in a soul love is so much more fulfilling, and what you give in a soul love is so much more fulfilling. A soul love is that ultimate acceptance. It is, for each and every one of us, we sort of spend our whole lives looking for the ability to be loved and accepted without condition for exactly who we are. We're not very good at giving it. and we certainly like to expect it in return without giving it ourselves. And that's just something you need to think about, because very rarely any of us give what it is we're looking for in return. But when it comes to a soul love, you do give it. And there's such a vulnerability in the relationship, that there isn't anything you don't know about each other. Not anything you don't think you know about each other, but there literally isn't anything you don't know about each other. They're good, they're bad, they're not decent, but they're real ugly too. And you don't hold it against them. And I know that anybody who ever watches this will be able to understand what a soul connection is, because we have the ability to do that with friends a lot easier than we do in our personal life. And that's because what they do doesn't personally affect us. Whereas when you're living with someone, when you're building a life with someone, when that person sleeps beside you, when you make love to that person, when that person literally knows you inside and out better than you know yourself, there's a vulnerability there. And so it's even more intense when it's a relationship, which makes it a very hard thing to do, because it's even more vulnerable. You're absolutely vulnerable to unconditionally love and connect to a friend, but if that friend hurts you, you can go and hide at home in your safe place. If you're being that vulnerable in a relationship and your partner hurts you, there's nowhere to hide, there's nowhere to sort of lick your wounds, there's nowhere to process. It's in that relationship. The other thing that is amazing about a soul love is that when you allow yourself, and I should back up, because being as vulnerable as you need to be in order to have a soul love is probably, not even probably, it is the hardest thing you are ever going to do. It is, which is why most people don't have soul loves. You got to understand, it's easier to have the other loves. A soul love is such a vulnerability, because you have to literally put your life and your soul in another person's hands, and completely and ultimately understand and know that they would never intentionally hurt you, ever. That they would take their own lives before they'd cause you harm with intention. That's a very vulnerable place to be. And it's a tough place to get to, especially when you have a lot of baggage and have seen a lot of piss poor relationships and things that you absolutely don't want. It's harder to believe that can exist. It's a very vulnerable love. It's an absolutely incredible love. It is the ultimate love that exists. It's the unicorn relationship that everybody talks about, that everybody wants, and it takes a lot to get there. And you have to really give in to those connections and those emotions, and that can be a really tough thing to do. We all have baggage. We all have reasons why it's hard for us to be vulnerable or to let people in. We all have those things, and in order to have a soul love, that's what you have to do. Like it or not, that's what a soul love is. And then there's a subtle love, okay? And a subtle love is, and I don't mean it to sound this so callous, but if you think of past relationships that you've ever had that didn't work, you actually ask yourself the honest question, you'll understand you've had subtle loves. And a subtle love is, you're not everything that I'm looking for. And this is in the beginning. You register this in the beginning. You may choose to tell yourself that that's not true anymore, and you ignore it. But a subtle love is you'll do. That's a subtle love. Okay. I mean, I like you, I could really love you, you're good in bed, or you got a good job, and you seem like you got your shit together, so we could do this. And you settle into a relationship. Now, those relationships can last a lifetime too, but those relationships can cause a lot of damage. That's important to understand, because you are not going to, in a soul love, you cherish your partner's secrets. Like, you take them to the grave. You won't let anyone, you'll do whatever you can for somebody to not harm your partner. And your partner will do the same for you. And their needs are more important to you than your needs are. But in a subtle love, that's not, you're not as vulnerable. And so, you'll put up with a lot of their crap till you won't. Whereas in a soul love, there really is no more crap will I put up with. In a settled love, it's like, you change too much. This adjusts too much. Yeah, absolutely. I accepted the first 3 jobs that you lost, but now you're at job 4, and I'm frankly, I'm not going to be your fucking your sugar mama. So see ya, right? A settled relationship, they're the ones that are breakable for sure. They are harder because you can get hurt in your safe place, which is your home in a settled love, and you're not as vulnerable, so you don't connect to each other as strongly. In a settled love, there are repeated patterns, and that's one of the ways that you can know that you've had settled loves. You use the same kind of nicknames no matter who you're with, or you do the same sort of routines. Whereas in a soul love, it's a completely different kind of love. I mean, I can give you an example. My husband and I, like I said, we're a blended family, and it was extremely imperative to me that all of our kids have all of their parents and aunties and uncles. And I truly believe it takes a village to raise a child. So I made sure that we were still very closely connected to my husband's ex, and he did his level best with mine too. And so, but I still, our kids are all grown up and we got grandkids, but I still go do things where my husband's ex-wife is, and, we'll go do camping trips and all that kind of stuff. She's literally slept in my house for days on end so that she could visit the kids. And I just believe that it takes all of us. So it's all what's in the best interest of the kids. But we were at a campfire. We were all together, and we were at our son's property, and we were at a campfire, and my husband had gone to run to get me a drink, and Agnes, my husband's ex-wife, was sitting beside me, and my husband walks up with my drink, and I hadn't asked for a drink. He just knew, because that's the thing about a soul love. You can sort of read each other's minds. You can finish each other's sentences. You just know, right? There's so many times where my husband will be downstairs and he'll be like, oh, I think this is what my wife wants. And he'll walk back up the stairs and walk in. And literally, if he'd have said to me, do you want anything while I'm downstairs? That is what I would have chosen, because he just knows. He knows me so well. So anyways, I'm sitting at the campfire and chatting away with Agnes and finding out what's going on with her life. And Brian comes walking up with my drink, and I see him in my peripheral vision, and I have this big smile on my face, and he walks up to me. He's like, here, baby. And he hands me this hot cup and bends down and gives me a kiss. And I don't even have to ask what's in the cup, because I already know what's in the cup, because he knows me so well. And Agnes turns and looks at me. Brian goes to walk away, and Agnes turns and looks at me, and she's like, who the hell are you married to? And I looked at her for a second. I was sort of little gobsmacked that she was asking, because I would think, being that she had been married to Brian for like 8 years, would mean that she would know who I was married to. Apparently not. And so I looked at her. I'm like, I don't understand. And she's like, that is not Brian. And I'm looking at her. I'm like, no, it is. Yes, that is absolutely Brian. That's Brian. That's my husband. And she's like, yeah, no, that's not the man I was married to. And Brian overheard her, and he flips around, looks at her, and goes, and that's because you were a bitch and wasn't worth it, and kept on walking. And I'm like, oh, I was gobsmacked that that's what he said to her. Like, I was like, oh my God, like, he would never say that to me. And we were laying in bed that night, and I was talking to him about it, and he's like, baby, the difference is I settled with her. She did the trick. She wasn't what I wanted. She just did. Right. And it doesn't matter that I had a couple kids and I tried to convince myself that it was good enough. When you're in a soul relationship, when you're with your twin soul, or you're in a soul relationship, because I want you to understand that you can have a soul relationship without being with your twin soul. Okay. Which means there's always more than one option. See, a twin soul means you only have one partner out there that's meant to be your partner. But that's why there's a twin soul and there's soul love, which is different. Okay. And you'll absolutely have soul love with your twin soul, but you can have a soul love with anybody as soon as you allow that connection to happen. So when we were laying in bed and we were talking that night, he's like, he explained it to me. He's like, it doesn't, there's nothing about you, like, even the things that drive me crazy about you, baby, they don't drive me crazy. So, I get an inkling of an irritation, and I'm like, nah, it's my wife. And he's like, and I end up smiling about it, because like, nah, it's just my wife. Right. And when he was talking, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, he's like, don't you do that too? And I'm like, absolutely. There are so many things that there is not another person on the planet that would put up with me. the way that Brian does. And there is definitely not another person on the planet that I would put up with the way that I would put up with the way that I put up with Brian. And that's because it's a soul connection. It's not a subtle love. And then there's I'm tired of waiting relationship. And you'll notice that I'm not calling that a love, because it's not love. It is, I don't want to do this alone anymore, and I'm going to accept whoever it is that comes through the door, and I'm going to try and make it work, because I'm tired of looking, and I don't like looking, and I don't like searching, and I don't really believe that I can have even one of those other relationships, because when you really, when you just accept whatever's in front of you, it's kind of like, you don't like fish and chips at all, but you're so hungry that you're like, yeah, I'll take the freezer fish and chips and pop them in the oven. There's those relationships too, and they're crap and they're miserable. Okay. And typically they're not even intentional. Okay. So those ones sort of happen for you, if that makes any sense. And I can give you an example, even in my own life, of, I was talking to somebody years ago. I mean, I've been married for a long time, but when I was single, I was talking to somebody, and yeah, we wanted to get together, and my kids weren't home that night. And so, I hadn't gotten laid in a while, and neither had he. So I took him home as a one night stand. He never left. Like, it never left. It was certainly not my intention. And then I actually accidentally got pregnant, and, so then you're in it, right? Like, guess it's what it is. I guess this is who I'm in a relationship with, but you're never really fully in it, because you're constantly irritated. And those ones are where there's a lot of arguing and a lot of fighting. And so those are the kind of loves that exist. Okay. And then there's, and then there's, arranged relationships, and there's, what else can I use? What else would I say is one of those kind of relationships? No, that would be in the settling. I think those are sort of basically what they are. And then there's the, I don't want a relationship because I don't trust anybody and I'm not willing to be vulnerable. And each one of these has a different level of vulnerability. Okay. So a oops relationship is what we'll call the one that I just lastly described. And that one holds like sort of a 5% of your vulnerability, because there has to be a little bit, because, they see you naked, or, they know what you sound like when you're going to the bathroom, and, they know how you throw your laundry around, and, they have no choice but to learn things about you, because they're in the same environment with you, or they're around you all the time. But you're certainly not going to divulge freely information that could be used against you in any way, shape, or form. So the vulnerability levels in that relationship are sort of small. And then you've got the settled love, and you're probably at I'm even going to say a 40-50% vulnerability at a settled love, because you're settling, right? You're choosing to settle. So you want to make it work, which means, you're going to throw you're going to give about as much vulnerability as you're comfortable with giving. And if you think about that, there's no such thing as being truly comfortable with all your vulnerability. I don't care who you are. It doesn't actually exist. We've all got too much baggage. We've all got way too many traumas and too much baggage. So sort of a different type of scenario there, right? And so that one, I'm going to say you probably take 40-50% of vulnerability is what you have to give into that relationship in order for it to last years, if not a lifetime. And then there's soul love. And soul love, and this is why it's so few and far between. This is why it's classed as the unicorn, because soul love is 100% vulnerability. And that shit is scary. It is scary. And it takes time. And that person will prove to you, because you let them, they will prove to you that they won't use that against you, because that kind of vulnerability is also the ultimate gift to receive. When you realize that this person that you care about, that you even are at the point that you think you love, or that you think you're madly in love with, when that person, they win every time you show the vulnerability. So what I mean by that is, because in any relationship, no matter what it is, just, you're going to show a little bit of vulnerability, if for no other reason than just to test them and see what they're going to do with it. And, soul love, where you get to the full vulnerability, which is super scary, is that you've given them a little bit of vulnerability and they've not used it against you, and they've shown you that there's no way that they would. So then you give them more vulnerability, you let them in even deeper and even further, and there's nothing about that that they'll use against you. If anything, they love you more. They love you more because of those flaws and those things that you've just shared with them. And they want to protect and guard what you struggle with. And so because of that, then you open up another level of vulnerability, because it's and that's what happens. That's how soul love sort of, that's how they're so successful, is that you have shown each other over and over and over again. You have proven to each other over and over and over again. You know, when I talk to people and I say, I know that there is nothing Brian would do to hurt me intentionally, I have proof. I have many, 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 many years and many, 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 many examples of the proof that that would never happen. So, and so I'm not saying that you just, you know, you walk into a relationship, you just throw it all on the table and give 100% of your vulnerability and make yourself that fragile without some proof. But you have to be willing to push out of the comfort zone. In order to even get into the settled love, you have to be willing to push out of your vulnerable comfort zone. You definitely have to be willing to push out of your settled or your comfort zone of vulnerability if you're going to get to the soul love, right? So I hope that that explains the different types of relationships, and I hope that that explains the different types of love that there is. Okay.